Pretty Dece, here we go. Facebook.com/Pretty Show. It's time to geek out with Josh, your host.
What's up, everybody? I'm Josh Meek, the Uber Geek, and welcome to Pretty Dece, the short show about movies, comics, games, and all the pop culture in between. The week of E3 is finally upon us, folks. That is the Electronics Entertainment Expo, and it's basically video game Christmas. It is the point in the year all of the major players in the world of video games get together and announce all the new stuff that's coming out this holiday season and then through next year. E3 has been changing over the past couple years. For example, Sony is not really having a presence at this year's E3. Nintendo kind of does their own thing, but still, it is a massive influx of gaming news. And if you're excited about games or follow games at all, it is one where you are just absolutely glued to the internet watching all of the news that has come out. So we're going to be talking E3 all week long, and I want to start our week of E3 focusing on a couple of the announcements that Microsoft made during their press conference this week. The biggest one, I think, for most people, the game that most people are going to be excited about the most is Cyberpunk 2077, specifically that Keanu Reeves will star in Cyberpunk 2077. Now, we've known about Cyberpunk for about a year now. We got to see it at last year's E3. It is the next game coming from CD Projekt Red, which are the developers behind the Witcher series and the Gwent card game that spun out of The Witcher. They're a developer that's based out of Poland, and they've focused thus far on developing these like incredibly rich role-playing games. And honestly, there aren't a lot of developers like CD Projekt Red anymore. They care about story in their games. They care about maintaining their independence as a game studio. It's one of their core principles of their company. They fought through rumored acquisition attempts throughout the years, and their games that they put out are, as I said, single player, narrative focused, trying to tell you a story, trying to evoke a feeling. They don't have superfluous multiplayer modes. They don't have free-to-play stuff tacked on. You know, I can't buy extra horse armor, for example. They are very pure games, very sort of singular focused games, and that's really cool. We don't get that very often in today's gaming landscape, and they do a really good job at making games of that ilk. Witcher 3 is a game that some people herald as one of the best games of this generation. So because of that, and because of how cool Cyberpunk 2077 looked from last year's E3, people were extremely excited about it at that point. And now Keanu Reeves was a surprise include in the trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 that we saw at Microsoft's press conference, and directly afterwards, Reeves came out on stage. You maybe have seen the memes or seen the photos online. Someone pseudo heckled Keanu Reeves while he was on stage. He mentioned that something was breathtaking. Someone yelled at him, "You're breathtaking," and he yelled back, "No, you're breathtaking." And it was maybe the cutest thing to happen in 2019 thus far. And really, Keanu Reeves is such an incredibly cool and smart casting for this game. It's a game that you wouldn't necessarily even think would have a named actor kind of at the forefront of it. But the fact that it does is really, really exciting. And the fact that it's someone like Keanu Reeves is even more exciting. Reeves is really having kind of a moment this year. People are both excited about him in the roles that he picks and as a person. He just seems like a really good dude. And that's never been more apparent than his time on the stage at Microsoft's press conference, dealing with the cutest heckler that has ever happened. Now, all this is said, let's talk a little bit about Cyberpunk 2077, the game. It looks really, really cool. It looks unlike any game we've really seen before. It's absolutely beautiful. It is this dystopian cyberpunk future. Everything is neon. The one character has this cool glowing jacket. There are these future cars in this future city. It's kind of everything you want from a cyberpunk game. And it fits into that genre. I think the reason that it's called Cyberpunk is very apparent, because they are going for all of those classic cyberpunk tropes that are awesome and that so many people love to see, but we honestly don't see in games that often. Games are the medium kind of most set up to have a cyberpunk game, but it's something that we do see kind of few and far between. You know, we get a handful, but less than you would really imagine. So the general setting, the beautiful look of the game, and now Keanu Reeves has people extremely excited about Cyberpunk 2077. And it'll come out, we got the actual announcement of the release date, April 16th, 2020. So not this holiday season, unfortunately, but we will get to play this game next year. Now, the next piece of news that I want to highlight from Microsoft is kind of a business move, and that is that Double Fine Studios is joining Xbox Game Studios. Xbox is really making the play to pick up game development studios, bring them into the fold, and I think the main reason they're doing that is to really flesh out their Game Pass offerings. They're kind of getting in the business of being the Netflix for video games, and to do that, they're going to have a lot of games. So they're really trying to bring all these developers into their own wings, essentially. And Double Fine is a great pickup. They are the developers of Psychonauts, Broken Age, Brutal Legend, and many more games. They're absolutely beloved by the community. And they're working on the upcoming Psychonauts 2. So really, really good pickup there. Not too much more to say, but Double Fine will be making games now for the Xbox Game Studios. And then finally, to wrap up today's episode, of course, we'll be talking much more about E3 in the coming days. Microsoft announced Project Scarlett. It really kind of fleshed out something that they'd been kind of talking about for a little bit. Project Scarlett is the next generation Xbox console, and they finally said outright it is coming holiday 2020. So we are moving into the next generation of video game consoles next year. So we're a little bit more than a year out now from these consoles, and they're starting to talk about them a little bit, including the first launch title. So Halo Infinite, the next game in the Halo series, will be a launch title alongside Project Scarlett. And we got a little bit of a look at some of the story of Halo Infinite. It looks really good. Halo looks awesome. We don't know much about gameplay or anything like that, but it looks good as you would probably expect. But we're going to talk a little bit about Project Scarlett and kind of what they said about the announcement. And honestly, it was a pretty weird video hyping this console up. We didn't get a look at the box, of course. We don't even know what the actual name's going to be. They're referring to it as Project Scarlett. It all sounds very impressive. It is a very tech-focused announcement. They talked about upwards of 8K resolution, 120 frames per second in games, using the solid-state hard drive as additional virtual RAM for games to use. They talked about the fact that the processor is 4 times more powerful than the Xbox One X, and they repeatedly emphasized that this generation of console would reduce load times. They pointed out how load times are kind of such a bummer in games, and you always know I'm in this elevator because they're masking a load and things like that. They emphasized over and over again that they wanted to reduce load times. But it was a weird mix of kind of those tech specs and also kind of pie in the sky talk. It almost felt like it was an Apple announcement of a new product. They talked about wanting to bridge the gap between console and mobile and PC, and how games are transformative. And all of that's fine and good, but I don't really understand how it directly correlates to a new video game console. So I left knowing when the next Xbox is coming out, and I left knowing some of the tech specs around it, but I didn't really have anything to kind of like sink my teeth into necessarily. So I wish we would have seen the box. I wish we would have seen some feature that we can start looking forward to, but as it stands now, it just is. So we have to wait a little bit longer to get some more firm details, but Microsoft is finally out there talking about the next Xbox, Project Scarlett. So that's going to do it for Pretty Dece for today. Thanks very much for joining me to talk about the first bit of news from E3. Again, we will keep this E3 news train rolling throughout this week. Of course, visit prettydeceshow.com for all the past episodes, and hit me up on social media. That is at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Pretty Dece Show.